AG, how you doing? This is Alex Alonso, tapping in from Los Angeles. I'm the founder of StreetGangs.com and Street TV. I'm a gang researcher and a graduate of the University of Southern California. I'm also a professor, a filmmaker, an author, and a father of three. And I've been sitting in on the Eric Holder trial for the last couple weeks. You know, the trial actually started a week and a half ago with jury selection, but for the last 2 days, they've been doing opening statements was yesterday, and testimony started yesterday and today.
Okay, so we've been waiting for this trial since like forever. So seeing Eric for the first time, I mean, I guess you would see him for the first time, I guess, in person. What was he like? Do you see any kind of like, what's his expression like on his face?
Well, I've been seeing him for the last 3 years because I've been going to the hearings,
okay,
you know, throughout from 2019. I went to the hearings in 2019, 2020. I think I went to one hearing in 2021. But the first thing I noticed with Eric when he walked out is it looked like he put on a little bit of weight. He was definitely slimmer in 2019 and in 2020. It looks like he put on a nice 20 pounds, but his demeanor in court is he's quiet. It's hard to see his face because depending on where you're sitting at in the courtroom, you're going to be like right behind him. But if you can, you know, get a side view, you'll see. I got a couple of side views, and he's just not too many facial expressions. What I also noticed, there's not a lot of communication between him and his attorney. And that's not unusual, but there are defendants that are constantly leaning over, trying to tell the attorney things, give them pointers, give them tips, give them information. But there's no communication between his public defender, Aaron Jansen, and Eric Holder.
Let's get into the jumpsuit. Is he like in a, because I remember we had discussed this, I heard you discuss this before, that he's under like a special, you know, is he separated by, you know, from any other prisoner?
Well, he was wearing the 5150 or medical colors, which is a yellow top.
Right.
But for trial, you don't wear jail clothes. You're actually dressed up in a suit. And I will say that the suit he had on today was very sharp. He had a nice suit on. He wears a blazer and slacks with white sneakers, with a dress shirt with no tie. He keeps his shirt open like this, and he comes to court sharp. These last 2 days, he's been real sharp in terms of his attire, and that's what you want to do. Usually the defense attorney will help you select your wardrobe, or your family will help you select your wardrobe. I have no idea who's helping him with his wardrobe, but the only difference that I would make is to wear a tie. I think when you put a tie on, it looks a whole lot sharper, but he's definitely dressing in nice suits.
Mm-hmm. Now, what can you tell me about his attorney? Is he a public defender?
That's correct. He has a Los Angeles County public defender. His name is Aaron Jansen, and he doesn't have to pay. I mean, you know, it's appointed by the state of California. We're paying for that. The California residents and the American citizens are paying for that, and that's the right of every defendant to have a public defender appointed to you if you can't afford to hire your own. And I believe that the public defenders, at least in Los Angeles County, can't speak for the public defenders around the country, I think they do a great job. They often get a bad rap. They think people believe that if you're stuck with a public defender that you aren't going to get good representation. And being that I've worked with a lot of public defenders the last 20 years of my career, there's some great public defenders in Los Angeles County.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's something I was like wondering too, like, because obviously he's switched so many attorneys since he's been in custody. It's been crazy. You know, he's been switching attorneys. First, it was the guy from forget that guy's name.
Christopher Darden.
Yes, Darden. Yeah, and I was just
that was his first attorney.
Yeah, and I thought that was going to go through, and he dropped out. But did you expect him to have a public attorney or no at trial?
Well, I don't know his financial background. I'm not surprised. If I was in a situation like him, I would seriously consider using a public defender as opposed to paying. To get an attorney to do a homicide case, in some instances, it's going to cost you $50,000 right out the gate, depending on who you get, or 100,000. So if I can get me a good public defender, someone that I trust, someone that I know is going to fight for me, why not go with the fair attorney if you believe in that attorney and you trust that attorney? So I'm not surprised that he's using a public defender. Most of the defendants that are facing homicides in Los Angeles County go with the public defender.
Okay, so break it down to us. What is the prosecution trying to convict him of, and what is his defender saying?
The prosecution is trying to convict him on one charge of first-degree premeditated murder, and 2 charges of attempted murder on Kerry Latham and his nephew, and then 2 other felony charges, gun charges. I believe one is a felon with a gun, and then I forget the other 2. So it's a total of five charges, 1 premeditated and 2 premeditated attempted murders. So he's looking at a whole lot of time if he's found guilty of all 5 charges. If he's just found guilty of the 3, that's enough to send him away for the rest of his life.
Right, and Eric Holder's attorney is countering with his defense is it was a heat of passion.
That's correct.
So that's correct. How do you justify? I don't know. How do you still? It's still bad either way. You shot somebody just execution style.
Well, he's trying to get a manslaughter conviction. He told the jury in his opening statements that what Eric Holder did, right out the gate, he admitted that his client shot and killed Nipsey Hussle. So there's no trying to deny that.
Okay.
He went right out the gates. My client did shoot and kill Nipsey Hussle, but it's not first-degree murder. It's not first-degree premeditated murder was Aaron Jansen's argument. And he said that once all the evidence is heard, and if you go into it with an open mind, you should come to the conclusion that it was a manslaughter as opposed to a first-degree premeditated murder.
And if he gets charged with, gets found guilty of manslaughter, like what is the difference between the years of, how much years can he face with manslaughter?
Manslaughter, the maximum on a manslaughter is 11 years in the state of California.
Okay.
So that's a big difference from 25 for the murder, and then another 15, probably 15 for the other 2 attempt murders, and then the other 2 felonies that are also attached. So all 5 of those felonies, I think I added it up. I think it comes out to about 70 years, 60 to 70 years if the judge sentences him consecutively.
Okay, so either way, he's burnt. Like he's going away for some time.
He's definitely going to go away for some time. It's either going to be 11 years. That's the minimum he's looking at, or he can get all day. He can get that whatever 60, 70 years. So we'll find out soon.
Who was in the courtroom? Did you recognize any family members? Any other people that we would know?
The only person I think that everyone would know and recognize that was in the courtroom is Cowboy, Herman Douglas. He was there during the first day of opening statements, and he was there today as well.
Right. What did the Cowboy have to say?
He stayed pretty consistent with what he said before, with maybe a few exceptions. But the main thing that the prosecutor is trying to get out of him was that the conversation between Eric Holder and Nipsey Hussle was not one that was confrontational. It was not a heated argument. It was not anything that included any sort of anger or hostility, because that will minimize the idea that you got so triggered that you decided to commit a homicide at that moment. Of course, the defense is trying to say that the snitch allegations is what triggered Eric Holder to go to the car and then come back with 2 guns and shoot. So that's pretty much what this whole trial is going to hinge on.
Mm-hmm. And there was, I guess we'll leave that for day 2. I guess we'll have to leave that. I was going to mention the Adam 22 thing. Okay. But I know there's some issues coming up with him, I guess, snitching. In your opinion, is he snitching? Do you think he's snitching? And this is a friend of his that was murdered. It's not like if he went on a robbery with somebody and, gave that person up.
I would say, with all due respect to Mr. Douglas, I understand what he's doing, but at the end of the day, it is snitching because you're there on behalf of the prosecution. You are there assisting them trying to convict Eric Holder of first-degree murder. I know he's going to say that it's all on camera. They already have it anyways. They already know what it is. But at the same time, you're there assisting. But I personally would never hold it against them. But if we're going to define what snitching is, that's what it is. And he said it on the stand himself yesterday. He said, some might consider what I'm doing as snitching. And he's 100% correct. But he feels very confident in doing what he's doing. It's tough when you're a close friend with the victim. I mean, he's been close with Nipsey Hussle since 2003 to 2019. That's what's that? How many years is that? That's 16 years, something like that.
Yeah.
So he's been a big part of Nip's life. And, some people are going to hold it against him. But, at the end of the day, I don't think he really cares. I don't really think he's concerned or worried about it.
Okay, so he was the only one who spoke out in day 1. Is anything crucial that you feel that he had that was any of importance that the audience should know?
Well, day 1, it was just really about the whole snitching allegation. And there was a lot of conversation about what was actually said between Eric Holder and Nipsey Hussle, because Cowboy was standing right there.
Right.
And Cowboy is downplaying the use of the term snitching. And he's saying that the conversation was about paperwork. So the defense attorney came back saying, well, isn't paperwork another way of saying snitching? And he was just trying to, you could tell Cowboy didn't want to say that the conversation had anything to do about snitching. But when you're talking about there's paperwork out on you, you might have been telling, I mean, we all can conclude that the conversation was about snitching. And we know that there's going to be another witness that's going to say that she heard the word snitching. So I think that Cowboy is just trying to minimize the use of snitching to take away any motive that Eric Holder may have had in the shooting. In fact, he actually said that Eric Holder did the shooting for no reason. He killed Nipsey Hussle for no reason in cold blood. That came from Cowboy.
Can I ask your opinion? Do you think the word snitch was used in that conversation between Nipsey and Eric?
In my opinion, that's a tough one. I want to wait to listen to the other witnesses that may have heard the conversation, because we've only had one witness testify that heard the conversation, and that's Cowboy. There's going to be another witness testify that heard parts of the conversation, and I think it's a little too early for me to have an opinion on that.
Okay.
But we definitely know that the conversation, quote unquote, was about snitching, because it was about paperwork. It was about, you have to get your paperwork together, or there's rumors about something that Eric Holder may have said regarding another case. But was the actual word snitching used? We'll find out after a few more witnesses.
Right. I did want to talk about the opening statements as the prosecution that had made. There were some things I didn't know. So apparently they played the footage that we all seen of the shooting, which has been in the media for the last couple years now. Another footage I've never seen that they showed was that after the shooting, there was I guess one of the men that were there standing with Nipsey when the shooting occurred, he had started videotaping from his phone. Can you clear that up for me, or do I got it wrong?
Well, in opening statements, they did show some footage from an angle of somebody that was there, but we don't have any details of that footage because the information on that footage will come out later in the trial. But it's definitely footage that none of us has seen before. And it appears that it shows his brother giving him chest compressions, while he lay there. And that's the first time we've seen it. But the prosecutor didn't go into detail about who shot it, where that footage came from. That'll definitely come later in the trial.
Yeah, and that's crazy. I just wanted to talk about, I know we were talking about off camera, how Black Sam was already there. I mean, from the video, I couldn't see it because the quality isn't that good. And it's, the camera guys shooting it from so far in the courtroom. I don't really see Black Sam. I got to watch it again, but.
Well, that's why I said it appears. I could be wrong on that. It just appears to be his brother. And I do remember him giving an interview for the LA Times back in 2019, where he said he was there trying to help his brother. So it seems consistent that would be him, but we haven't received any testimony on that just yet.
Right, and that's something that I was asking you, like, how did he get there before the cops and the ambulance?
That's true. So far on day one, Cowboy pretty much identified everyone who was there, and he didn't. Black Sam's name hadn't even come up, so we know for a fact that he wasn't there when it happened.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know. Would you be able to know the detail of how responsive the ambulance was? Like, did you know when they arrive? How long did it take to get to the scene?
That information hasn't come yet, but they have a witness that will be coming to testify about all of that.
Okay, cool. I did want to bring up let the people know one detail about Nip's shooting was that the prosecutor said, I didn't even know this, but just looking from the footage, you could tell someone was up as far as that. Nip was shot in the spine, and that caused him kind of like to drop where he dropped. And the prosecution also stated that if he had survived, he would have been a quadriplegic?
A paraplegic.
Paraplegic, so he wouldn't be able to walk again.
That's correct. If he was able to survive this attack, the bullet that severed his spine would have rendered him a paraplegic probably for the rest of his life, because it was major damage to his spine. And with our current medical technology, we haven't figured out a way to reverse that type of injury. So he would have been in a wheelchair. Right.
And he was, come to find out, he was shot 10 times, I believe, right?
Well, that was in the opening statements that was said. We haven't got specific testimony. The coroner hasn't testified yet, but they said 10 or 11, wow, which I thought was interesting because you would think they would know the exact number, but right, I believe I heard 10 or 11 shots. I don't know 10 or 11.
Yeah, I didn't even know that he was shot. He was even shot in the head. Can you? I know we discussed this before. Can let you know the details of his head wound?
Yeah, actually, on day one, Cowboy testified of the injuries that he saw on Nip because he ran out of He testified that he was inside the break room inside the Marathon store, and he ran out and he started to hold the injuries that he saw. He saw a bullet hole somewhere near the lower abdomen, and then he saw another bullet hole somewhere between the neck and shoulder area. And he said he noticed some bleeding coming from his head, but he wasn't sure where it was coming from. But we later find out that Nip did sustain a gunshot to the head, but it did not penetrate the skull. So it sort of ricocheted, it entered his head and came back out and didn't penetrate the skull, didn't penetrate his brain, didn't do any sort of brain damage. But he did, a projectile did hit him in the head.
And off camera, you had told me you believe that he had most likely suffocated to death because.
Well, Yeah, I think there were 3 gunshot wounds to the lung, and that's pretty tough to survive, because immediately your lungs will collapse. And I know a couple of people that have been shot in the lung and dealt with a collapsed lung. And everyone that I know that has been shot in the lung and survived talked about almost dying. But it's usually one bullet to hit. You could survive. I definitely know you can survive getting shot in the lung with one bullet. But I think I heard 3 shots to the lung. So my guess is, I'm just speculating that he suffocated. He wasn't able to breathe. And also, Cowboy testified on day one that he didn't see a lot of blood. It wasn't like a pool of blood where Nip laid. So he may not have died from blood loss, or perhaps not being able to breathe from the lung injuries.
Mm-hmm. It was reported in the media, I believe he had died within like 30 or 35 minutes. Do you know the details of that or no?
No, I don't know the details. Well, they give you they pronounce him dead at a certain time at the hospital. Right. The time they pronounce you dead is not really the time you actually died.
He could have died way earlier. Yeah.
Yeah, he could have been dead when they put him in the ambulance. I mean, I've seen it happen where they put you in the ambulance and you're already dead, but they're not 100% sure. And by the time you get to the hospital, a doctor will pronounce you there. And then sometimes they'll pronounce you DOA, dead on arrival, right at the scene. Right. But they pronounce them at the hospital, I believe.
Right. Is there anything from day one that you think that you should let the people know? Because I think I've asked everything that comes to mind as far as day one.
Not really. It was just day one, we learned what the defense strategy was going to be, because everyone was trying to figure out, was he going to deny it? Was he going to say it wasn't me? But right out the gate, his defense attorney said, my client shot and killed Nip, but he did it because of heat of passion, being agitated or being triggered by the snitch allegations. So I think that's pretty much the main thing we got from the opening statements by the defense attorney. And then the back and forth with Cowboy about the snitch allegations and that conversation between Eric Holder and Nipsey Hussle. What were the words actually said? And I think that the words actually said is important, because it's going to help the defense try to come up with their strategy, and it's going to help the prosecution try to convince the jury that everything was A-okay. So basically what the prosecution was really emphasizing was that Eric Holder got out of his car, he approached the group, he shook hands. Even, I don't know if we already knew this, but Nipsey Hussle and Eric Holder actually shook hands. They showed a little video. So Eric shakes hands with everyone in the group, and there's a conversation. And then according to Cowboy, after they had the snitch allegation conversation, Eric Holder pivots away from that and starts asking them, have you guys listened to my new music? That's what Cowboy threw in, and everybody was like, "Nah, we haven't really listened to the music." And
it's not for that shit.
And then he leaves, and I believe he goes into Master Burger, perhaps gets his food. So that's pretty much the main thing that both sides is trying to prove. Prosecution saying everything was peaceful, there was no argument, there was no fighting, and the defense is trying to say that these snitch allegations triggered Eric Holder.
Maybe he had a better shot if he had said, "Hey, I got pissed because they didn't listen to my music."
A couple people think that the girl that Eric Holder got the ride with, her wanting to take a picture with Nip and her wanting to see Nip may have triggered him, but we haven't heard any of that in court yet.
Right. Because she was present and heard all this. I'm sure heard all of this conversation, bro.
No, she didn't hear all of it, because when Eric Holder got out the car when he arrived, he went into Master Burger first. So she saw him going to Master Burger, and then he left Master Burger and went over to the group where Nip, Cowboy, and a guy named Rimpal were all standing.
Mm-hmm.
So then she sees Eric Holder walk over to where Nip is at. And then at that point, she comes out and wants to take a picture with Nip. So she missed a lot of the conversation, but she is going to testify that she did hear some of that conversation as well.
Okay, that's going to be interesting. All right.